Thank you very much. Imagine a world where visitors have amazing, meaningful, authentic experiences, connecting them with the land, the people, and the animals, enjoying local food, and leaving the place better than when they arrived. Because that's what they're looking for. A world where farms are profitable and successful in thriving rural communities, providing employment for generations to come. That's what agritourism is all about. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really exciting to be invited by Caroline. My name is the New Zealand Caroline. I've been talking to a lot of people here, and I've had to change my name because everyone said, when I said, oh, Marijke, and I'm from, I run Agritourism New Zealand, everyone said, oh, you're the New Zealand Caroline. So I'm the New Zealand Caroline. All right, I'll just have a look at this. Oh yes, I'll put like your nice logo on top of one of my clients' hills. It's called Welcome Rock Trails. So I'm going to have a little talk to you about New Zealand, and pretty much everyone I've talked to today, I can't really see you very well, has been to New Zealand. So can you put your hand up if you've been to New Zealand? Look at that, it's just incredible. It's like half of Scotland's been to New Zealand. So that's really nice, and I feel right at home because coming from the very south of New Zealand, it's very Scottish there, and I don't know if you've been right to the south, but I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. So, my real name is Marijke Dunselman. I speak funny because I'm Dutch, but I've been in New Zealand for 30 years. I'm sort of half Kiwi. I grew up I was born in the Netherlands, but then grew up in France. Then lived in the States, came back to Holland to go to university, and having a bit of an international background, I got the travel bug, traveled around the world, spent 3 months in New Zealand, and then emigrated 2 years later. A lot of my time when I was young was spending holidays in different parts, very much agricultural sort of areas, whether it was on friends' farms, and the last time I was in, this is actually me, I look a bit different now. This is 38 years ago when I was last in this area, and enjoyed riding, and of course the Highland cows and everything. So I'm only here for a very short time now, but I'm coming back in a year and a half's time with hopefully a contingency from New Zealand. So my farm, everyone asks me, it's always funny, I always feel a bit embarrassed because everyone says, are you a farmer? And I'm just like, I'm not a farmer, sorry. But my grandfather was a tulip farmer, and I still have quite a few family members that are in tulips. And that beautiful tulip on the right there is called Flaming Parrot, and that's in my garden in New Zealand, and that's been sold all around the world, so that's quite nice. So just a little bit about New Zealand. Caroline, even though most of you know everything about New Zealand already, so we have pretty much the same population as you have, so that's nice. It's a nice size in terms of population. We have, well, you can see where they're all from. The land use is quite interesting. It's 33, so a third of New Zealand is conservation land. So this is Department of Conservation. It's protected land. It can't be used for agriculture or anything else. It's quite unique. Our main export industries are tourism and farming. Pre-COVID, it was tourism. Then now we're just about recovered from pre-COVID levels. There are some great trends, which is really exciting for us, is that people are staying longer, quite a bit longer, up to 50% longer, and they're spending more, which we all like, of course. We have about 50,000 farms. I don't know how many farms do you have here in Scotland, do you know? 24, okay. Yeah, so various sizes. Of course, we are about 3.5 times bigger, just under 3.5 times bigger than Scotland. 38% of our land is used for farming, and our main top 3 sort of farming industry or farming types are sheep, beef, and dairy. The one thing that's, when I've looked at that, also compared it to other countries like Australia, and we have a relatively high percentage of the workforce working in agriculture, so 5.9%, and I looked it up, 1.5% in Scotland. I don't know if that's correct, but that's what I found on Wikipedia, actually. We have had no farm subsidies since 1984. The country pretty much went bankrupt. We just couldn't afford it. So they abolished farm subsidies. And a lot of, back then, I believe, a lot of farms went bankrupt. But the ones that survived, you know, a lot of them did survive and were still there for a while. We also have free trade agreements with a lot of countries. So a lot of countries in the world are doing the opposite, like the States. I think you guys as well with Brexit, like we're putting up walls. We in New Zealand want to do the opposite. So New Zealand was the first country in the world that had a free trade agreement with China, for example, which is quite unique, and a lot of other countries as well. The little arrow, is this a light? Does it work? Yeah, oh, it works. This is where I live, in the south of New Zealand. When I first came to New Zealand, I lived in Southland. That's the largest province and very much a rural province. One of my first jobs, I had a brief stint in teaching, actually. I'm teaching French and economics because I couldn't find work in my field, which was more international marketing and corporate world in Europe. So I got a job managing a regional tourism organization in this region. This region also has Fjordland National Park. I don't know if you've heard of that or been there, which is a pretty amazing place. And Southland is very much a farming community. They often say Auckland's built with the money of Southland, you know, way back, because it's very much a farming community. So when I was managing a regional tourism organization there, then do you have those here, regional tourism organizations, or not? Sort of like, so it's really about, it's the same job that, say, Tourism New Zealand does, but then at a regional level. It was a great job because I met so many people and so many people in agritourism back then. It wasn't called agritourism, no one called it that, but there were lots of farm tours. And we're going back 27 years ago or something. So this is where I live. This is just outside of Queenstown. It used to be farmland. There's still sheep around. My house is sort of just on the corner here. And I think Caroline's going to come and visit so she can see where I live. And this is the other side of the lake. It's called Jack's Point. That's the other side of where I live. It's a big lake. It's called Lake Wakatipu. It's an 80-kilometer lake. Lots of high country stations around there, which is really beautiful and a lot of agritourism happening there. So just going back to New Zealand, Scotland, you can see the size. I sort of try to superimpose it. It's slightly bigger than the UK, the whole of New Zealand, so it gives you a bit of a perspective of how big New Zealand is, or small, in the middle of the ocean. So the other thing is there's a lot of Scottish connection to New Zealand. So between 1 and 2 million New Zealanders have some sort of Scottish ancestry, which is amazing. So a lot of, it's really funny because we went to all those places, and even today I heard like Roxburgh, that's a little town. We've got like Tay Street and D Street and Space Street and all these Scottish names, and of course Dunedin, which is the Scottish name for Edinburgh, Dunedin, or probably say completely wrong, but that's, you know, in the south of the South Island. So the south, the blue bit, that's very much Scottish, and especially the south. There's also an accent, like a rolling R, the lovely rolling R that you guys have. In the south, they have that as well, in the south of the South Island. So there's a lot of Scottish words. The team, the rugby team is called the Highlanders, so of Dunedin and the south. So that's also, of course, Scottish. So it's quite amazing how many similarities there are. And of course, lovely sort of, you know, southern hospitality, and just like you guys offer. So then we have some not such good news, and that's the latest, the last Federated Farmers Farm Confidence Survey. The news wasn't so great. So about a third of farmers are actually making a loss. Only 39 break even, and only 27 make a profit. So that's not great. So over time, you can see what's been happening with farms in New Zealand as well. So this is the number of farms. I'm just going to have a look at my thingy here. So the total land area, oh, that's over here. of farms in the past, say, 20 years has gone down 13%. The total number of farms has gone down almost 30% in New Zealand in the last 20 years. So that's just, yeah, from 2000 to 2019. So that's sort of not great, because lands are being sold, farms are being sold because they can't make it work, or they're being developed for housing. But there's a massive decrease. Then we look at tourism. Tourism is the opposite. So if you look at global international arrivals in the past 50 years, was 4.5% annually, and that's a compound annual growth. In New Zealand, this was 6.5%. So number of farms going down, but tourism going up. So when I talk to farmers, I often show them this type of stat just so they can see, wow, tourism is actually, a growing industry. Of course, we had that dip with COVID, but the agritourism businesses still did really well during COVID. A lot of them were full. People started to discover their own country, because instead of going overseas, they discovered their own country and spent a lot of time, off the beaten track in those sort of environments. So when we look at the international visitor arrivals to New Zealand, about a third of our visitors come from Australia. So that's Oceania, that's a few other little islands, but mostly Australia. The second largest market pre-COVID was China, and then the next market was America, and then Europe. So now it's slightly, again, like we heard before from Visit Scotland, the Chinese market hasn't quite recovered yet, but that market is returning now. Indian market has been very strong to New Zealand, growing, so Pandurang hasn't been yet, but that's in the future, hopefully. We get a lot of European visitors, UK, you guys have all been. And the great thing is with the European market, they have the longest length of stay. So they stay about a month on average. And that's interesting looking at the stats here, I always like stats, is that the numbers here, of course, they're mostly shorter because it's short haul. America's a longer haul market for you. For us, apart from Australia, everyone's a long haul market. So the other interesting thing with that is that about 75% of our international visitors come through the tourism trade, so through inbound tour operators and wholesalers. So those distribution channels are really important. And the other one is through online travel agencies, so Booking.com, Airbnb being the biggest. And a number of them, of course, get direct bookings, but if they do a lot of social media, they might have 20,000 people on social media, or they've been doing email marketing or other things to get those markets. But in general, people do, work a lot through the agents. We also run, my partner and I, that lovely gentleman at the start was my partner. Forgot to introduce him. We live, in Queenstown, obviously. He runs a guiding company, very much also working with the high country stations, but for the very high end of the market. So the high net worth individuals, we call them. So, film stars and rich Americans. So his market is about 97% through the tourism trade. So that market is, those channels are really important for us. So I've worked very much also with the operators in connecting them with the trade. So I've been running an international marketing collective for almost 20 years now, where I visit inbound tour operators and wholesalers regularly to connect them with these people, and it keeps me in touch with what's happening at the coalface of the tourism industry. So I just want to tell you a little about the Agritourism New Zealand story or journey. The things that we've been going through, and it's been really interesting talking to Caroline, because she and you guys have all been through similar things, really. So I worked first, like I said before, as manager of a regional tourism organization, and then about 26 years ago I set up my own, no, not 26, but 23 years ago I set up my own marketing consultancy and training business in tourism. I was always working with farmers along that time as part of that, and many of those were already existing businesses. And then over time, more and more, I found that farmers had different needs because they weren't already, a lot of them weren't already in tourism. So the type of people that I've sort of grouped, if you like, is you've got the newbies. So those are people that could potentially be interested in agritourism, but have never done anything in that industry. Then the next ones were the ones that dabble in it, I say. For example, a lot of people in New Zealand have a little cottage on Airbnb. So that province of Southland, which is almost half the size of Scotland, it's only 100,000 people. There are 1,000 listings on Airbnb, and half of them are in rural areas or on farms. So that's massive. That market is huge. Then we have the people where I put like the $triple that are already working that are established agritourism/tourism businesses, lodges, farm tours that have been going for a long time. So the ones that I needed to target were really people that had the potential to grow their business, but really don't know how, or people that are looking at diversifying into tourism, or kids coming back to the farm who really want to do something but don't know how. And then we have all the other stakeholders in the industry, suppliers, regional tourism organizations, economic development agencies, all those sort of guys. So about 7 years ago, I developed a program, agritourism success program, it was called. It was sort of a 6-month program where I worked solely with farmers to help them, set up an agritourism business. And then I started finding out that the farming organizations, as well as Tourism New Zealand, really didn't take agritourism seriously. So at the coalface, the actual farmers, they were interested. Then the economic development agencies at regional level saw that there was a potential there, but higher up, I had meetings twice a year, like with our Minister of Agriculture, and he would say yes, and he was just great because I knew him from my tourism Southland days, and he would say, yes, it's a lot of potential. Go to this Rural Communities Fund and see if you can get some funding there. And then you go to them and they, you just basically hit a brick wall. Same with like Beef and Lamb New Zealand. That's all the beef and sheep farmers are associated with that. They live on these incredible properties. They said, no, we're about farming. We're not about tourism. That's not serious stuff. So for years and years, of knocking on doors, and trying to get some traction. Then the media started paying attention. Media was great because they could see this as something new, and it's not new because a lot of people are already in it, but they could see the potential. The other thing, like with Tourism New Zealand, is sort of quite interesting. So in the 1990s, when I moved to New Zealand 30 years ago, it was very uncool to promote rural areas. Like sheep were boring, like rural farming was boring. The thing that was exciting was like bungee jumping and jet boating and maybe hiking in the national parks. But sheep, when I was at Tourism Southland, that basically was very uncool. So Tourism New Zealand still has a little bit, it's taken a long time to change that mindset, let's put it that way. So we sort of started over the last few years, and I know Caroline has been doing a lot of this as well, speaking at conferences, summits, doing podcasts, doing panels, doing free webinars, lots of those, like these opportunities in agritourism. I would do those every week for people just to spread the word. Then I started forming a lot of partnerships with a couple, with the main media companies, Farmers Weekly and a large radio station, and now have monthly slots, if not more, with them. Started doing all of this sort of stuff. So that's been speaking non-stop at all sorts of stuff. media, this also, all that sort of thing. And then people started now, finally, after years and years of knocking on doors and talking to politicians, talking to, like I said, to media and farmer groups, finally they're starting to pay attention. Finally, I feel like we're going from this a little bit more like this. A couple of months ago was the first time ever that Beef and Lamb New Zealand started looking at diversification or innovation because of the farmers really struggling and needed to do something else. So they organized a number of summits around the country. I was invited to speak at those, and that was the first time, like I said, that they looked at anything else but farming. So that sort of was a bit, I was like, yay, finally. So then, in the past few years, we started running these agritourism accelerator programs around the country. Again, these were like 5 months programs, but it's me running them. I mean, I get a little bit of funding from each region, so it's knocking on those regions' doors and then ask me to come back again and do more things with them. But again, it's sort of all, nothing that, if you're not in that region, you couldn't really join that program. So, of course, New Zealand's very big, so it's so great here, like your monitor program, for example, where because it's easy for you to travel to those regions. For me, if I go to, I've got to fly everywhere. It's sort of quite far away. So what I decided to do is to set up the Agritourism Academy. So it's agritourismacademy.com, and it's an online training platform that's been in the pipeline for years. And because training is sort of my passion, I think education, you can really help people build successful businesses. So the Agritourism Academy is an online training platform. It's a community. It's not just an online 3-month course that people get every 2 weeks. They get a new module. We also have weekly sessions where we discuss a specific topic. And actually, my last little weekly, I also put out like a weekly roundup, and I was saying I was here, and people say, oh, I've worked in Perth before, like on a farm and stuff. They're sort of a lot of them have been here too, like of New Zealanders. So this is sort of, they can connect together. There's an online forum. It's quite a sophisticated sort of platform, and it's very cool because ideally, of course, and farmers love meeting in person. I mean, you're the proof of that. But if you're that isolated, it's just not that practical. So that's the Agritourism Academy, and that 2 years ago, I contracted a developer, and it cost me a lot of time and money, and I had to sack him. And I started to start completely from scratch. So this was finally launched at the start of this year, and it's going well. So Agritourism New Zealand, we're about the same things that most of these organizations are about. We also have a strong connection with Tourism New Zealand. We have Qualmark, which is our accreditation system that's run by Tourism New Zealand, and we are part of that, and we are Qualmark Gold, so that's very much about business planning, customer experience, health and safety, and environmental sort of initiatives. We're very much about sustainability. The other thing, I'm part of the Global Agritourism Network, which has been a lot of fun. I chair the education committee for that and meet people from all over the world, like Pierre. He's on my committee. And it's been great because we've been talking every month pretty much, or every 2 months, and finally meeting here in person. And I met Pandurang and Caroline through that as well. So it's really amazing, that sort of connection. So the things that I'm very passionate about is collaboration and innovation. Okay, how are we going for time? Because I thought 2 minutes. Jeez, that's okay. I'll go really quick. So collaboration. I talked about the agritourism. So that's the international collaboration. I've talked to you about national collaboration, that's with Tourism New Zealand, and farming organizations. This is a little video I want to show you about. Tourism New Zealand.
Welcome to Polokai, the restaurant with the most stars. We've linked the beautiful night sky of New Zealand with our world-class cuisine and created a restaurant with the most stars in the world. So this is your Fiordland lobster. It's one of those really special ingredients of New Zealand. Some fermented black garlic, a little puree, it's smoked over tow tray. Yeah, enjoy guys.
Eat your heart out.
I'll keep going, but that's basically, it was filmed on a high country station in Canterbury. And so, yeah, they're slowly getting into more sort of the agritourism side. This is my international marketing collective with the different operators in that. So Southland, that province, I started working with them about 8 years ago, and they're now sort of now brand themselves as the home of agritourism because there's so many agritourism operators in there. So that's all about collaboration. And then a collaboration at a local level where you have operators working with like in this case, a winery. So working together is something that I'm very passionate about. So the type of agritourism businesses, I know it's time, I'm just want to show you a couple of last things. So one thing I'm also extremely passionate about is kids coming back to the farm, where you have young people working, coming back to the farm. That's something that these guys, they've set up a lodge on a farm, and they're now, they turn over, well no, their nightly rate's about £1,000 a day, a night, and are very successful in what they do. Then we have a business model. Can I still go for a couple of minutes? Yeah? Like this is a business model where you have someone else completely else, running an agritourism business on your farm, and that's quite exciting. This one is Pure Pods, it's called. They're all over New Zealand. They put them on a farm, it's a 30-year lease, and it's a profit share arrangement. That's also quite innovative. And this one is the last little video I want to show you. Actually, I'll just go forward.
We're the Tora Coastal Walk, a 3-day, fully catered walking adventure located in the southern Wairarapa. We're family owned and operated and have been going for over 25 years. Our walk provides people with an opportunity to switch off from their everyday lives and have an adventure in the great outdoors. We're just 1.5 hours from Wellington, or 30 minutes from Martinborough Wine Village, the perfect stop for some local supplies or a spot of shopping. Meet your hosts. I'm Kiri and this is Tinaka. Together we ensure you're well looked after. Walk through our farmland, native bush and along the rugged Tora coastline. Just carry your day bag and we'll sort the rest. We'll even pop your wine in the fridge so it's chilled when you get there. We're famous for feeding you well along the way. Fully catered, the ingredients come straight from our garden and our region. Fresh, delicious and homemade. Our walkers tell us they leave feeling recharged, revitalised and refreshed. So if you're looking for your next adventure, come and do the Tora Coastal Walk, New Zealand's most beloved private walk. So those type of products where you have 3 farmers working together and developing a multi-day experience is something that I work a lot with. I really try to encourage people to do that because everyone wins, they work together, and these guys are booked almost 2 years out, fully booked. Like you can't even get in. So last, this is one of the stations I work with. What's next for Agritourism New Zealand? We are doing, I've got a number of new initiatives. One is growing the membership, running a roadshow, a training retreat. I love retreats, that's fun. Running Agritourism Awards. So I don't know if do you have those, Agritourism Awards? Not, okay, well, we'll need to organize that together then. And we also, well, the other thing, I was running a conference, and then COVID hit, and then
I had to cancel everything. So a conference is in the pipeline as well. So last but not least, this is a Maori proverb. He aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? It is people, it is people, it is people. Thank you very much for your hospitality.